Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the DevFacto webinar series, Modern Form Design for the Enterprise. Today's webinar is going to include a 20-minute presentation by DevFacto's Julian Charles, and it'll be followed by a 15-minute demo. We'll save some time at the end, about 10 minutes for questions at the very conclusion of the presentation. If you do have any questions along the way, you're welcome to type them into the question box at the bottom of your screen. We will probably address them at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and made available on the DevFacto YouTube channel later this afternoon. And so we hope that you can reach out to us if you have any questions. You can find us online at devfacto.com, and we look forward to hearing from you. So now I'd like to pass the microphone along to Julian Charles, and we'll get the webinar started.
Good morning. So my name is Julian Charles, as mentioned. I'm a solution architect with DevFacto. I have 15 years experience in IT consultancy, with a focus on ECM portals and collaboration. What I'd like to talk to you today is about the evolution of form design and development as it relates to SharePoint. Nintex productivity offerings have influenced a major transformation in form and workflow design for SharePoint by extending personal task and business productivity into whole new capability areas, facilitating the delivery of a true hybrid SharePoint 365 experience. This is an anytime, any device experience. It's enterprise-grade cloud application, allows for integration with various external databases and internal solutions. So today's presentation will provide insights into how your business can benefit from investments in these directions. It will reflect on the landscape of work and business, how business continues to change, and how Nintex is not only keeping pace with these changes, but investing into the future to anticipate and take advantage of them. Now, our focus today is forms. And a well-designed form is much like a conversation. In the olden timey days, let's say, form input was very typical. It would be something of the range of what's your name, what's your address. You may have to put in some merchant information. But in today's space, there's a lot of services that are available to provide context for form input, such as user profile services, location services. Context is very powerful in the aspect of form design. So whether you're building an application form that is part of a larger application initiative, a registration form, or even something as simple as a contact form, this is where people-centric design becomes a focus and an opportunity using that context. We can help people do their best work. And as I mentioned, context is very powerful in this day and age. And by using the latest tools and techniques available to businesses, we can show you how, in 30 minutes, we'll take the mystery out of creating forms and workflow that show you how to save time, cut costs, ensure compliance, increase accuracy, and boost morale. At the end, you might even be wondering where Nintex Forms and Nintex Workflow have been all your life. As a Nintex Premier Partner, DevFacto is driven by our desire to help people to do their best work. The Nintex platform is all about making processes easy. Easy to automate, easy to improve, easy to monitor, and easy to govern. Above all, easy to understand. And we do it without sacrificing power or flexibility, and we'd like to do the same for you. I'd like to go to a poll. Laura, can you post the poll, please? Whilst Laura's posting that poll, I'll kind of cover the three aspects of modern form design. We're going to talk about the benefits of modern form design. I'm going to give some platform insight through a demonstration, and we're also going to talk a little bit about people-centric design. So the business forms of today are constantly changing. You know, initially conceived as a paper document, the form is now electronic and can surface on any number of form factors, from desktops to laptops, mobile devices. In addition, parallel evolution of forms from simple structured documents to the primary interface used to collect by a variety of enterprise processes and applications. When using business forms, organizations not only need to implement the right processes, but also an effective strategy. So when using business forms, organizations not only need to implement the right processes and also have an effective strategy, modern forms should enable rich interaction with business processes. They should aggregate data and content from multiple sources, encouraging collaborative human interaction. Organizations should also strive for business forms to be effective, efficient, and easy for the designers to build, and so simple that anybody within the company can use them. With an integrated approach to forms, we believe a solid form strategy can be built that will help organizations gain a critical edge within their industries. After reading this presentation, you'll understand how to approach forms in the context of a larger workflow automation solution. Some of the benefits of modern design: minimal or no code required for design and development. There are aspects of form design and development that allow you to engage a little deeper and bring in development resources. Typically, forms are now device agnostic. You have people using all kinds of devices for form input across all platforms, and users within the workplace and the enterprise bringing their own devices into the enterprise. The ability to integrate with databases and business applications, whether they reside on-premise or on cloud. So these are some of the benefits of modern design. The next step in the agenda is some platform insight. We're going to gain platform insight into essentially Nintex Forms standard, some of the enterprise features in Nintex. We're going to take a quick look at Nintex Mobile and some Nintex workflows, as well as I'll talk a little bit about Nintex Live. From there, we'll have a brief discussion regarding people-centric design and what people-centric design is, and how designing for users increases your chance for success regarding your form usage. So the benefits of modern form design. Typically, users are looking for something quick and easy, small amounts of code that integrates into external business applications, both on-premise or in the cloud. They're looking for device agnostic, one-click publishing for the web and native mobile applications, both for consumption on iOS, Android, and Windows. They're also looking for forms integration, so the ability to connect forms to other business application sources with cascading decision trees and flexible input for their users from both a design and a usage perspective. They also want to be able to extend form development. So just because we can function with minimal code or no code, that doesn't mean Nintex Forms is not looking to engage developers. Nintex Forms has what I call God mode, my favorite mode. Essentially, you can build your own functions within Nintex Forms, and you can also look to consume services and data sources. It's a full stack forms development solution. So our poll results indicate that there's a lot of usage of PDF forms. So a little platform insight. Nintex Forms is an intuitive browser-based design solution. Once again, it provides the ability to commit to cloud and on-premise services. However, that provides the ability to utilize context-aware. So user profile services. By utilizing and consuming something simple as a user profile service, that forms conversation that I mentioned earlier regarding name, location, credit card information perhaps, can all be collected with minimal input from the user. What we're looking to do with this type of integration is minimize the amount of effort required by the end user. And by providing connections to these services, we can have a single source of truth for input in our forms. The separation of design and logic with Nintex Forms and Nintex Workflow. Forms allows you to simply focus on the simple aspect of input, taking input from your user. And the logic is separated out into the workflows. This provides the ability for designers or developers or business users to design the simple aspects of input, whilst developers and more savvy users can focus on the logic that's behind the form via workflow. So why Nintex? Well, Nintex is a global leader in workflow, allowing immediate deployment of easy-to-use, powerful workflows that leverage your SharePoint infrastructure for lower total costs and faster speed to value. We choose Nintex for its ease of use, speed of deployment, and its robust capability. It has tight SharePoint integration and allows for a lower total cost of ownership. Nintex also provides outstanding service and support and has earned that reputation within the market. In 2015, they were rated as the #1 O365 and on-premise application in the SharePoint space. So in order to automate workflows, we need the best technology and a trusted, reliable provider. Nintex is the world's largest provider of workflow with SharePoint. More than 5 times the implementation of any other solution within the space. It's also an enterprise-grade workflow platform that is used by more than 200 of the Fortune 500s and more than half of the Fortune 50. Some of their largest customers run upwards of 100,000 workflows per week. People-centric design. People-centric design is something that's fairly new within the UX space within the last couple of years. And it focuses on empathy and memory. It's beginning to gain some traction, but there's been some pushback with regard to people-centric design. However, if you look at CX Design, who is a company that essentially promotes usability within forms and has essentially standardized the way we present labels and form elements, it's really a focus on action. We're looking to drive intuitive context experiences with task-driven adoption. If you were to take a moment and just, 1 second, let me just go back here and read through the PCXD, People-Centric Experience Design, you'll notice that it's an alignment through purpose, guided with empathy for memorable experiences. The Nintex data flow diagram really symbolizes this with people, process, and content. I'd like to switch to one more poll. And whilst Laura gets that up and running, I'll talk a little bit more. And then we can prepare to get into our demo. So the Nintex demo is a hands-on introduction to Nintex Forms, Nintex Workflow. It provides us with an opportunity to experience these powerful new productivity solutions for yourself. An Nintex demo is not a generic demo about all the features that Nintex has to offer. It's a true-to-life user experience. It takes you through a common work-related scenario, such as being productive while mobile, using smart business process tools, and rapid application development methodologies in order to get work done, allowing to connect in real time with coworkers and your customers. So we're discovering a consistent way to get incredible SharePoint form and workflow results. both in form and workflow. We're identifying the business benefits of form design. Once this demo is running, we're going to focus on a leave request, something that's very common within human resources. So we're going to start with a standard leave request. I'm currently acting in the context of Eden Stafford. And as you can see, this is just a standard 2013 SharePoint install. I'm going to add a new item. I'm going to make that request for tomorrow. And my chubby fingers are going to allow me to input this eventually. As you can see, I could make this request on behalf of somebody else if I chose to. However, I'm not going to. I'm just going to save this leave request. And you'll notice I've got a golf day. Now, typically, this would kick off the workflow automatically. However, for this demonstration, I'm going to start it So before I start the workflow, you'll notice that there's a context for this workflow. This is the instant that will be run, the instance of the workflow that will be run. This is a user-defined action at the top. There's an edit title action, and there's a send notification. We'll get into those in a little more detail in a moment. So I'm just going to start the workflow. The workflow is starting. Once that workflow started, I'm going to switch contexts to Eden's manager. So I've received a notification. If I'd have been online as Eden, I could have received an IM. I'll show you that in a moment. I'm going to switch context now. So I'm now Brett, and I've received a notification that Eden Stafford has requested an annual leave. But there's some interesting points within the email. So Eden's made a request for the 30th of September to the 1st of October for a total of 16 business hours. His HR reports a balance of 80 hours. I can look to respond by clicking on the task, or I can simply reply to the message using something called lazy approval. Simply by responding to the email with the term approve, I'm approving Eden's request. I could have received that request on a phone or on a number of devices. Maybe it's approved, actually. We will check for, oh, it is approved. So the system's just responded to me to let me know that the task has already been completed. If I switch back to my context of Eden, I should receive a notification that my leave request has been approved. Now, by viewing, this is a view of the workflow in progress. Green meaning go, amber meaning processing, and red meaning something went wrong, much like a traffic light. So I can see right now it's at the Ask Manager stage, and it's still pending. So my approve response was probably not correct. So I'm going to go to the task and approve the task. Right within the task, I can see the same view that Eden Stafford can see. Now, because Eden was online when that request was approved, you'll notice that Eden received a message via IM, via link, that his annual request was approved. Now, if you cast your mind back a few moments ago, Eden received an email. Now, the workflow is able to actually look for Eden's status, and based on his status, provide the correct channel of communication that's available. If I refresh the screen, notice that the workflow has progressed, and it's progressed along the approve decision tree. Now I can see all kinds of stats with regard to the workflow, the amount of time it took for a particular action, such as the update lead balance, which is actually going to a different application, has taken a long time to process. I can identify where bottlenecks are within my workflow. Now, we haven't really showed much regarding the form. And if you remember, it was simply a standard SharePoint form. So I'm going to go into the list itself. And just to refresh your memory, this is what the form currently looks like. To go into the list, click Nintex Forms and customize this item form. Now, based on the SharePoint columns that were available to the form, Nintex has automatically generated a view for us that conforms to that people-centric design that I mentioned earlier, CX design. All our labels and our form input elements are all present. You'll notice all the actions on the left-hand side. These are available for drag and drop. Not yet. And they're your typical form design elements, such as date, time entry, hyperlinks, labels, etc. There is something neat that's been added to the Enterprise edition of Nintex Forms, which is SQL, which allows for us to connect to an SQL source, and that can be any database within your enterprise. I'm just going to delete this for now. And there's also a web request. So any web services that are running within the enterprise can also be configured, which allows you to essentially have single sources of, or sources of truth rather, for your various form field elements. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. As you can see, I haven't really changed much. We'll look at the form again. Now, Nintex supports the ability to have a template. If you notice, automatically a banner and a logo was added to the form. That can be essentially a template that's specific to a site collection or a subsite. So you can have different logos and different presentations for when of information for when a form is published automatically using templates. If you notice at the top of the ribbon, there's also a number of things that are available. Form variables, so you can contain and pass information by variables from workflows to the form and vice versa. There's also a smartphone, an Nintex mobile phone, a Nintex mobile tablet, which allows you to publish to various devices. If I click on the Nintex mobile phone, you'll notice that a layout has already been generated for us, which allows us to publish to mobile devices and or mobile tablets such as iPads. Now the forms themselves have a number of views that are available called rules. Switch back to desktop view. Rules can dictate what is presented and in what context it is presented in. So if I choose an element, I can choose what the formatting for that element is and some of the conditional rules around the displaying of that element. In a particular mode, I may not form field elements to appear. In a different mode, I do. Forms can also be published to Nintex Live. Nintex Live is a cloud form publishing service that allows you to expose forms to your external clients and or customers. And you can see the configuration for you guys. It's as simple as clicking a checkbox and publishing to the Nintex Live service. You can decide which users will be available to access that form. I'd like to come back to the workflow and show you some of the functionality around workflow. It's all about separating your business logic and keeping your forms simple. By combining these two tools, you can do just that. How are we doing for time, Laura? So this is that leave approval workflow, but this is it in edit mode. The first thing you'll notice is this get user info, which is the context. If you cast your minds back to a few moments prior, I was talking about how context is extremely powerful. Well, we have the context via user profile service, so Eden doesn't really need to provide any of that information. For connecting to other systems, there's another UDA, which is called a user-defined action, called get lead balance. User-defined actions are extremely powerful and allow for more savvy users or developers to create actions that can be continually reused within the enterprise. So if you have an action that needs to go out to your HR system, for example, and is a little more complex, you can have a power user or a developer design these UDAs for consumption by your business users. Now you'll notice this get lead balance and these this custom tab right here called HR, which contains these UDAs. That user-defined action is used to go to the HR system and get the available balance that's available and do a calculation on how many business days are actually available to Eden. If there weren't enough days available for Eden, the notification would have indicated so. Upon approval, you'll see that there's another user-defined action that actually updates that HR. Once again, workflows operate in a very similar manner to Nintex Forms, allowing for dragging and dropping a number of elements and operations that are available. We have actions that can be performed on the list themselves, actions that can call into external web services, we can create CRM records, we can find users by status, execute SQL. There's a tremendous amount of power in the separation of logic from input. Now obviously, it's such a platform that it's difficult to provide access within a 45-minute time frame. I do encourage you to look at some of the functionality and the white papers that are available with regard to Nintex Forms and Nintex Workflow. And I encourage you to look at utilizing people-centric design within your enterprise.